This podcast is brought to you by Flipper, a marketplace to buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate. Plot your own path. Become a boss by buying a small online business at Flipper. Simply visit flipper.com/techtalks for a free consultation and 50% off fees. That's FLIPPA, flipper.com/techtalks. If you do visit, let me know how you get on. But now, let's get the show started.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where we don't just attempt to learn how technology is transforming entire industries and provide real-world examples of how your business can leverage technology too, but also bust a few myths along the way too. So at a time where businesses of all sizes everywhere throughout the world are all trying to work out what that future of work will look like, maybe we can eradicate that work from home versus working in the office argument, because I think we all need to embark on a quest to find that perfect blend between both of them. But I want to explore the misconceptions surrounding flexible work too. So I invited Jed Brown, SVP of Product at a company called Fuze, onto the podcast today to talk about that topic, and also their recent announcement about Fuze 6, which is a platform that is expanding enterprise-grade capabilities and supporting accelerated digital transformation and business continuity. All very relevant topics for the current climate, so buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Washington, Seattle, where we can speak with Jed Brown, SVP of Product at Fuze. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Jed. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. My name is Jed Brown. I am the SVP of Product and Design at Fuze. And I'm located in Seattle, Washington.
I have spoken to a number of people at Fuze over the last few months, and you guys really seem to be, appear to be on a journey at the moment that involves continuously innovating. So can I begin by asking, tell me a little bit more about this mission that you're on to provide a secure, scalable, and integrated experience that actually helps businesses compete in this rapidly evolving digital economy, because it just feels like the entire rulebook has changed over the last few months.
And indeed, things are definitely not static.
Yeah.
I love that question because I think back to our personal lives that, if we look at true innovation, it normally comes from taking something extremely complex and turning it into something that feels like second nature to us, right? In a way that you forget it even exists, right? Because it was so, of course it is that way, and it feels innovative and useful. And across the board, I think we all have experienced that with things like Google Maps, right? Of course, I can just pop in a direction and easily get there and know exactly when and how long it will take. Or with our iPhones or Uber, Lyft, as other examples of things we take for granted today, is the way that I think we at Fuze see innovation, which is, of course, it's that way, right? Of taking what traditionally through technology was way too complex and very hard or only used by IT or advanced users and making that feel like second nature. And so across the board, as we think about our platform and the ease of use, it just working no matter what the circumstances, situations are across the board, and ultimately really being behind the scenes, right, of helping people communicate and doing that in ways that they may not have expected as part of their life or at work, but really just getting out of the way so that people can be people and talk to each other and communicate and get things done.
And I think that every business at the moment is exploring how to empower the digital and distributed workforces to be able to communicate anywhere, anytime, and across any device. I think that was always the nice to have, that place where people wanted to be. But of course, now there isn't a choice. Everyone needs that to survive. So how are you helping bring that vision to life at Fuze?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, we truly are a mobile first company. And what I mean by that when I say that is, it goes back to what I talked about a little bit earlier, which is simplicity, right? That the ease of use. And so when we think of what mobile means to us, what that really means is easy accessibility to the technology, right? To what you're using, and that being accessible anywhere. And so, if you think about those core two principles, it's I can achieve anything anywhere and on any device. And so for us, web and mobile devices, tablets, that is a part of what we consider mobility. And if we think back to the craziness that's happening right now, if on a whim someone had to stay home, being able to grab their spouse or partner's laptop and instantly being productive there, for us, that's a form of mobility, right? Taking your phone, taking your tablet, logging, just going to web.fuze.com. Those experiences to us fall into that mobility trend. And as a few examples of that, in the last 2 weeks of March, right when we were kind of hitting our peak here in the U.S. and really globally, we saw a 700% increase in web usage, and likewise we saw 380% in mobile app usage. And as we target large enterprise, and so what's exciting about that is what happened when people were at home and didn't have an IT provisioned laptop. You can pick up this device we all have in our pocket. That's a very powerful computer, it turns out, and has a camera and has a mic. And just being able to use that and then learning through our experience or through their own IT, like, oh, and then I can also just log on to web.fuze.com and have that exact same experience no matter what I'm in. And so for us, that has really changed the game. That irrespective of whether it's a device controlled or not by IT, whether or not there has been formal training or not, just empowering the users to truly be productive anywhere, right? In the car, at home, at an airport, walking around with their children, whatever it is. Those are important moments for us to be able to not worry about technology, but just be able to do what we need to do, right, during these crazy times.
Absolutely. And one of the other things I love doing on this Daily Tech podcast is busting a few myths and misconceptions. And it does feel at the moment like every business is talking about flexibility and remote working. And we're seeing I'm hoping that we're finally seeing the end of that remote working versus in the office debate, because I think we all can accept it's somewhere in the middle. But what are the biggest misconceptions that you're seeing surrounding flexible work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that because I think there's a lot, and especially in large enterprise. And I think the two that stick out to me the most are, one being there are 5 working generations, right, that we talk about. But I think the biggest misconception is they're actually not that different. And we typically the industry does. Broadly takes a bit of an ageist approach, talking about, well, here's what the older generation does, here are what the younger millennials do. And to be frank, I think that is one of the largest misconceptions. The truth is we are very complex beings, right? You might be a night person and I might be a morning person when it comes to in terms of when are we hitting our optimal productivity, right? And then add on top of that, if you have kids, family to take care of, pets, geography, time zones, there's so many aspects that as individuals in our unique circumstances, when we are at our best and what it means to be flexible in our own lives, right? There's always that elusive battle between work-life balance. Many say there's a lift and that it doesn't exist. And others say, that it's always in the pursuit of the perfect balance. And the truth is, it's a bit of a mixture of both, right? It's the journey that you take. It's not a destination, which kind of gets to my point too. It's a journey, and it's about finding those moments where you are the most productive, where you are the best father, spouse, person, whatever it is for you, to find those moments. As an example, we on that piece I was talking about, that second of it's really a journey, it's not a destination. We did a report, and it's now been about a year and a half, or really 2 now, the second half of 2018, and where we did a big survey, and 95% of workers said that a work-life balance and flexibility were an important factor when searching for a new job. I can't imagine how that has changed now, Given that what used to be a nice to have, to your point, is now not just, it's important for us to consider. Now it's going to be necessary, right? After the experience, when we're all looking for jobs, it individually, I think that will be one of the most important factors we talk about is, will this employer help me really be my best? And what does it mean to be my best? It means doing my best work when I know I can do the best work, right? And that is a different stance probably on what flexibility is, but it's that treatment of, we are all unique, and you can't really box anyone in, right? Because we all individually, we get exhausted differently, whether that's we're on video too much, or too many meetings in the morning, or too many in the evening. It's finding those moments, like as if we were athletes, right? There are those moments of, what does it mean to be in peak fitness? We should think about our minds that same way.
And it also feels at the moment that secure and resilient communication and collaboration tools are table stakes and critical to maintaining business continuity. But would you agree with that? And assuming that you do you think that leaders that don't grasp that concept are going to quickly get left behind?
Oh, absolutely. I think you always hear, talking with CIOs and CEOs, people are your most important asset, which is so true. But if you really dig into what does that mean, it's, individuals, we are at our best when we are really productive and working together. And what do we see today? This might be leading into the territory of HR of what does it mean to truly be productive? It's good communication, right? That's where we see individuals and teams break down or be highly successful, is how well they are working together and communicating together. And traditionally, bad communication ends up with bad teamwork, right? And in the way that we behave as a company and as organizations. And so traditionally, I think today we still tend to think about technology as our solution, right? What are the technical solutions for our needs? If I think about, even today, some of the deals coming our way in the RFPs, the request for proposals, they typically contain feature checklists. But I think really savvy leaders really understand that it's not just about checklist of, can the technology do X, Y, or Z? It's really, will this technology be easy to use? Will it feel intuitive, like the devices they're picking up when they're outside of work? And will that adoption happen across my company? Because adoption truly is critical, right? If your employees aren't actually utilizing the same tools you've given them, now there's inconsistency. Now your ROI isn't there. And in fact, it means that your employees have probably found something better. And so I really do believe that the leaders who are grasping this, who don't want to be left behind, who really want to have that advantage between themselves and their peers, right? To have that advantage as a company is to make sure that their people are working at their optimal happiness and satisfaction and productivity, as well as that they are doing that across a secure, compliant, and more importantly, data-driven system where they can see the insights and understand exactly what's happening within their corporation. And so it's a great time. It's a good forcing function for leaders to really step back and think about what can bring a competitive advantage for them in the way that they drive and manage their business, right? And that, to me, really begins with really fantastic communication between the company and their customers.
I'm curious, what kind of conversations are you hearing from your customers at the moment? And are there any trends around those conversations you're having?
Yeah, with these changing times, I think there's a few different trends that are coming up. One being what I call mixed environments. Because if you think about the technology and experiences today, they're really tailored towards, we are all in a conference room together, right? And we have all the right things for us to be productive and communicate together, or the reverse that many of are experiencing today, that, each one of us are by ourselves with one camera, we're one video pod, in this experience, or one, box dialing into a conference call. And a huge trend that we're seeing is already, which is fantastic, is companies already thinking about, now what does it mean to be best in class and great at those mixed environments, right? Where we do have a handful of people most likely still, spaced out a little bit differently. Conference rooms not quite as full as before, as well as always having people who are truly remote experiencing that. And that's both a technology and a cultural thing. That empathy of being in a room together and understanding that it is also on you, person in the room, to make sure that those who are not in the room are equal peers, right? Have the exact same opportunity to chime in, to interrupt, and have those social cues. And so we're at a perfect time where the technology is there, the experiences are now there. But it's important to think about those together. If it's not one or the other, it's hybrid. There will always be more people in a conference room together and people remote, right? Whether they're literally just an office away or, around the world. It doesn't really matter, but that's a really important theme that's happening now of how can you create those best-in-class mixed environments. Related to that, a second would be contactless experiences. What does it mean in this world where both perhaps by compliance, but also personal preference, what it means to be touching less of a lot of the shared experiences that we have. So traditionally, there's been a big uptick in, touch screens for conference rooms or for your own private office. What does it mean now when we think about from your own device being able to remote control these so that you're not necessarily touching as many shared objects or using voice commands? And, really we're just scratching the surface in terms of an industry. We've seen that with Alexa and others, here at home, but it's becoming even more important now within enterprise. And then the third, I would talk about being, seamless experiences for everyone. We touched on that and a little bit earlier, but a massive theme we're seeing right now is there are so many individuals in enterprises today that can benefit from what we traditionally would consider very complex solutions like a contact center or really advanced webinar experiences, or even hardware to a degree that would only traditionally be thought of for unique purposes like a conference room, and what it means for that to actually be accessible to everyone, right? Because we all have needs. The question becomes, is that complexity worth the effort, or is the cost worth the effort? And how we can really democratize a lot of these experiences to individuals becomes a very important thing moving forward.
I've had countless emails from listeners over the last few weeks talking about their fears and concerns around job security, while also seeing their interest rates on their savings drop considerably. And as a result, many are beginning to look at how they can invest in their future in an uncertain time. Could digital assets be the answer? Now, you might remember that I spoke to Blake Hutchinson, CEO at Flipper, on episode 1194 about how to buy digital assets and websites. In a nutshell, Flipper is a marketplace that you can buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate that are just ready to go. So if you do have dreams of running your own successful online business, or perhaps you're looking to exit your existing online business, my friends at Flipper can help you buy and sell. So if you're interested and want to find out more, please visit flipper.com/techtalks. That's FLIPPA.com/techtalks for a free consultation and also 50% off all fees. But now, back to the interview. How are you at Fuze helping your customers to turn these challenges that we're talking about here into opportunities? Because I think we do focus a lot of the time on the uncertainty that's in the future, but there's also a great deal of scope for opportunity, isn't there, as well?
There it is. Oh, huge opportunity. I think a lot of the things that we just touched on, what does it really mean to be on the go? What is contactless? What is mixed environments, mobile, web, adoption? All of these are huge opportunities. And, at the end of the day, what are we doing? It's about removing the friction for individuals, right? For every person in the company, wall to wall, remove the distractions, remove the frictions so that each of us can be our best, right? And really focus on the tasks at hand, the needs at hand, the workflows, and communicating together as a group to progress things forward. And so I think now more than ever, we've seen what, as others have said across the board, what normally takes 3 to 4 years of cultural change and technology advancements really being compressed into just a few short weeks, right? And in this case, maybe a few months of what it means to really force this type of cultural change across a company by necessity, not by the gradual evolution that typically happens. So now is a perfect opportunity for companies out there to embrace solutions like Fuze and others to progress that forward and really set the tone for what it means for, independent of where you are, what you're on, what devices you have available to you, what your time zone is, what's happening in your house or not. It's an optimal time for everyone to find those spaces of what it means in this world to truly have flexible life, work, and those balances and the craziness around it.
And I also recently read that you released Fuze 6 recently. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and your mission to actually enable enterprise organizations to more easily mobilize their workforce while maintaining secure and scalable communications, but on an enhanced user interface? Because it seems incredibly cool what you're doing here, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on some of these. Fuze 6 is really about bringing all of those to our user base, and the timing, was fantastic in terms of the needs that were instantly needed, right? The changes that have been happening right now, and so it's really been that journey, or Fuze 6 is really the end of that journey of bringing mobile web experiences on top of our secure platform. And with that, pulling in more advanced scenarios like contact center flows. An example of that, there's so many users today that, even perhaps you and I, we wouldn't necessarily raise our hand and say, oh yeah, I need a contact center product, or you know what, I myself belong in a contact center. That's not true by the nature of my role. However, there are so many people out there like myself that can benefit from a lot of the what would traditionally be considered very advanced and complex workflows and around contact centers. So one of the things that we've done is really strip that down to be about users, the humans and their workflows, what it means for their day-to-day for both internal and external interaction. And so a huge part of that is no longer requiring you as a user to have a full suite of contact center experiences or a whole SKU dedicated to that, but to be able to pull in the aspects that really matter to delight your job. And part of that is bringing that into the unified experience where, if you're, for example, a sales associate, walking around your store, you wouldn't traditionally think of yourself as someone who belongs in a call center or needs a contact center product. Yet, as part of what we've brought to the mobile experiences, you can walk around with your device, be that a tablet or mobile, and you can sign in and sign out of the experiences depending on what department you're in. That's just for us an example of bringing what is traditionally very complex and hard to use and understand into an experience that just feels like your normal day-to-day communication, right? Like, now I'm ready to start answering questions about, whatever subject matter that I care about at this moment or that was programmed for me at this time, and being able to switch that, whether that's on web, mobile, or desktop, as part of an intuitive experience of your workflow, as opposed to traditionally, having a whole different experience or understanding the complexities of those systems behind the scenes. The timing of Fuze 6 was really fantastic in terms of so many of these type of users, even the more traditional contact center users, in less than 12 hours, they realized they had to work from home. And so the ability to have that complexity in a extremely seamless, very easily deployed service that they can access from any browser without any install, without any requirements from IT, was a night and day difference for them, right? To be able to that next morning continue with their job in this crazy economy and what's happening right now. So for us, it's just a really exciting moment where all these pieces and the mantras of what we believe in, of mobile first and taking the complex and making simple, and that security across the board with compliance, comes together for a really uniquely positioned product right now.
And what is next for Fuze? Are you guys nervous, cautious, or even excited about the road ahead? Is there anything you can share about that?
Yeah, extremely exciting. We're just scratching the surface, both Fuze as a company, but we as humans. If I like to think a lot about, what it means to be in 2020. And, despite a lot of technological advancements over the last few years, and even dating back to, when was the very first video call available? That was, over 20 years ago. But if you really think back to, in the 1960s, the Jetsons, they showed a preview of what it means to have a face-to-face communication, back when you could barely even make a phone call, right? That was still painful, and the quality was horrible. And it has really taken until now for that to be ubiquitous. If you think about, as technology advances, there's always, every decade, there's fundamental shifts in what takes something, technology that's available, but really brings it to the masses, right? And that's a combination of that technology is now at a price point or an accessible point for everyone to take advantage of. And there is a generational or some external force that forces a group of people to really adopt that technology in a given time and place. And so, what's happening right now is really a union of those. There's technology that's been available for quite a while now, but there hasn't been that cultural shift to really embrace a lot of these experiences across the board, right? Whether we're talking about the human side of flexible work, or if we're talking about the technical side of video and content sharing and multi-people, 1,000 attendees in a single meeting, collaborating and talking together and working on notes, all of that technically was possible, but it was difficult to use in the past. And so, now not only is that technology available, there are now cultures that have been changing, right? By force in many cases with everything that's happening right now. But now it's expected. I think to a few of my friends that we were talking about this over the weekend, and one of them received a call from his father, who I believe is in his 70s or 80s. And one of the interesting comments was, I think at that time it was a FaceTime call. And my friend joked with me and said, "You know what? It's interesting. My dad will not call me anymore. He's like, if I can't turn on my video, or he can't, he doesn't want to talk. For him now, every single interaction with a human, you should be able to see their face. And that's what happens, right? In day-to-day life. When we meet physically, we can see each other, we communicate. And it's really because of limitations in technologies, dating back to the early 1900s, that wasn't possible. And we actually were okay with, going to at least the common denominator, and that's changed, right? And that's an example of going back to the misconceptions. Someone necessarily of that age wouldn't necessarily, from the perception or the conception of, would they prefer video or not? That's not true. That is a human who, irrespective of what generation they came from, what's happening, appreciates how today things are different, how today we can expect to see each other when we speak, how today we can expect to be fully productive as we're getting our work done. And so, we're just scratching the surface. That's literally a monumental change that has happened over the last 3 months, given everything that's happening right now. And we're only starting to see how that's changing. I'm really excited to see, both from us, Fuze, and from a lot of startups out there, a lot of large enterprises out there today, how, so many things are going to continue to change in the way we communicate, the way we work together. It's really exciting to see how culture plus technology plus intent, changes the world. And I think we're on the precipice. It's the tipping point for another big radical change that we're seeing today.
Fantastic. Well, I've loved chatting with you today. But before I do let you go, could I ask that you remind everyone listening of where they could find you online, and also contact your team if they've got any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, the best place to find out what we're doing and to contact us is just to go to fuze.com, Fuze.com. And that will route you to the right place depending on the question you have or any additional information that you'd like to understand.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the blog post that will accompany this episode. But I wish you the best of luck for Fuze 6, and I'd love to hear more about how you get on with that later on in the year. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me today on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I think regardless of how a business looks at flexibility, workplace innovation will continue to advance at high speed and evolving into a more natural and integrated aspect of life and dominating the expectations of modern workers. But this shift in the rhythm of traditional work creates assumed challenges that might be intimidating for so many organisations out there that are trying to adapt. So, for me, pushing aside misconceptions and uncovering the truth about flexible work can accelerate any organisation's path to delivering a successful balance of work and flexibility to all its employees, regardless of age or working preferences. So a big thank you to Jed for sharing the misconceptions that prevent flexible work from being successful throughout business, and importantly, explaining how the right technology will not only kickstart flexible work now, but it can also prepare a business for what's to come and keeping them open-minded to the future too. But enough of me rambling away there. This show is not just about me. It's not even about the guest. It's about you. Everything that you're going through, what your business is, the challenges that your businesses are trying to overcome, those successes, those failures, all of it. I want you to try and share them with me on this podcast, and hopefully together we can all learn a thing or two. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So once again, we covered a hell of a lot of ground in just 30 minutes, but if you're game, we'll do it all again tomorrow. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.